Welcome to so many Santas for the last week of the year. I'm Josh.
Ooh, I'm
Boo
Garrett.
indeed. Bah
And
humbug.
I'm David.
Yeah, it's the last one.
It is. It is.
I
In
don't-
fact, this episode will go
Shucks.
out right around Christmas Day, I think.
Yeah, pretty close to
Yeah.
it. Hopefully. Well, TBD. But
Yeah.
let us know
Who
what day
knows?
you're listening to it. Maybe it is Christmas. But we are doing our last Christmas movie of the year, which is It's a Wonderful Life.
Mm.
Somehow this movie has escaped us for the past several years, at least for covering on this show. So we're going to talk about that. Go subscribe to us on YouTube. So many sequels. You can search for us there. We're also on all your podcasting apps. And if you want the video version, that's on YouTube. And it's also on Spotify now. So that's exciting. All right. Let's talk about It's a Wonderful Life. It's a holiday favorite for generations. George Bailey has spent his entire life giving to the people of Bedford Falls. All that prevents I don't know. I copied this from Letterboxd. I don't know what rich skinflint means. Feels wrong to say.
It sounds a little dirty.
It sounds a little dirty.
Mm-mm.
All that prevents a rich skinflint Mr. Potter from taking over the entire town is George's modest building and loan company. But on Christmas Eve, the business's $8,000 is lost, and George's troubles begin. This movie was not a big box office draw, though, was it?
No, by most estimates that I can find, the movie only made about 1.4 million during its initial run.
That's nothing.
Yeah, I mean, and nothing by today's standards for sure. And even by 1946, it was well outside the top 10. The highest grossing movie that year was the Academy Award winner, and it brought in about 10 million. So It's a Wonderful Life supposedly made over its collective with re-releases and special showings and stuff, has supposedly made around 12.2 million, 16.4. But this movie also has had kind of like, it's gone back and forth in terms of who holds the exact rights of it anymore. So I don't know if anybody has really enjoyed that, the fruits of that particular money over time. But anyway, not necessarily a huge hit, but did have a big life after its theatrical run, thanks to television and thanks to obviously home video, which we can get more into as we go. But yeah, it was kind of known for being kind of not really a bomb, but just not really a big success.
So maybe the answer is as easy as everyone says it's one of the best Christmas movies. But what made you pick this one this year, Garrett?
Ooh, there's a cluster F of reasons as to why I picked this movie.
Okay.
One is that we haven't done it. One
Yeah.
is that it's regarded as one of the best Christmas movies of all time.
Yeah.
One is that former co-host Andrew said it's his favorite movie of all time.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
true.
And one is that I have never seen it before, ever. So it felt like the right time. We also had some, less than stellar like standouts this year.
Mm-hmm.
No disrespect to Hot Frosty, but I thought this would be a good way to kind of round out the Christmas season
Yeah,
for so many Santas.
Oh, yeah.
pretty valid. So then, having not seen it, what expectations did you have going into this movie?
That's a tough one because I have only heard good things, right? But I also struggle to I don't want to have such high expectations for something
Yeah.
because it may or may not be met. So I didn't allow myself really to kind of set any certain expectations other than I bet this is a good movie. This is going to be a good movie. Maybe it's not going to be up to my pace. It's in the 1940s, and sometimes, as much as I grew up watching movies from the 1940s, I love Abbott and Costello and those guys, but sometimes they're a little slower. And so I just thought this is going to be a solid, well-made movie, and I will go from there to see how I feel about it. So that's kind of where I went into it.
Yeah. I've seen it before, so I don't think I'd say I had expectations just because I've seen it. But I do always wonder, is it going to hold up? Will it look any different? This is not a movie I watch all the time. Not even annually. I know a lot of people watch it every Christmas season. I don't do that. But there's still the question of is a movie of that time period about these issues going to still hold up today? And it definitely does. It absolutely holds up. So my expectations continue to be met, I guess. Had you seen it before, David?
Probably saw it when I was around 15 or so. I feel like I was in school when I saw this, so I saw it kind of broken up.
So did you have any different expectations now watching it as a fully fledged adult?
I kind of expected it to be like a solid film. I mean, I knew it was kind of, it's always been heralded as a bit of a classic. So I kind of was just like, well, this will probably be solid. I don't know, if I'm going to you never know how engaged you're going to be with a film this age. That sounds wrong, but you never know. And so my expectations were just, all right, this is probably going to be solid. I'm not,
Yeah.
not really expecting to be like, I wasn't, with no way was I expecting to like not like it. But my expectations were actually exceeded. I actually liked this a lot more based off of my old memory.
Yeah. So we talked about it a little bit in that opening synopsis, but the real gist of It's a Wonderful Life is that George on Christmas Eve has kind of been driven just to rock bottom in his life, and he's contemplating ending it.
Mm.
And at that moment, this angel, Clarence Oddbody, is kind of appointed to
Second
help
class.
Angel Second Class, yeah.
Mhm.
Help George see the impact of his life and why it's so important, why he's been such an important figure, even though he may not always feel like it, and why he needs to stay, why he still needs to be here, even though he may not feel like it.
Mhm.
So this is a movie that it's like a weird twist on A Christmas Carol in a way, I feel like. I don't know if there's any intentionality behind that, but we kind of see a reverse look at that.
Is
Christmas Carol is Scrooge is a bad
Mhm.
person being shown by the ghost of Christmas past why he should be a better person.
Mhm.
And this is George is a good person and he's being shown why he's a good person and why it matters by these
Mhm.
angels.
Mhm.
it's
What
yeah.
do you guys
To
think
me,
about that? Because I feel like I never really processed and sat with that in the past.
I feel like so one of the expectations I had is that I did kind of have this like Christmas Carol vibe. Truly, I don't really know much about this other than a guy comes to realize that he has a good life and he doesn't want to kill himself at the end. Like I knew that general gist, or he became a better person, or something happened at the end. I knew that. So I kind of had this idea that it was a Christmas Carol, but I felt like after seeing it, it was told as from the perspective of Bob Cratchit,
Mhm.
where
Yeah.
Bob Cratchit is really struggling with his life because he's got a POS boss, his kid's sick, and his whole family is just like really struggling, and it's all on him, and he doesn't feel like he's doing anything right. And he is really just going through this. And then these angels come down and show him that. So I agree that it gave me Christmas Carol vibes, but it made it look like from the perspective of Cratchit.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting parallel because you do have, again, whether in the form of ghosts or angels, this divine intervention to sort of stop someone at the crux or at the sort of the midpoint of their life. Maybe not midpoint, but at the very least at a point where they can like things can truly change. Watching this character, and the interesting aspect of this movie is that it's sort of it's structured in the way that Clarence as an angel is being caught up on this guy's whole life. So instead of just showing you George Bailey's life all the way up to this point and then all of a sudden an angel pops up, you're kind of given it through a narrative form. Like there's narration, the characters kind of commenting on what's happening from heaven, and they are watching this man who constantly is kind of forced to give up on his own ambitions and dreams to help and protect the community around him from forces that don't care about them. That he has like his heart is just big enough to like put himself aside, even though man, he really just wants to get out of this town. It's all he's ever wanted. And then you kind of catch all the way back up to sort of where the story starts. The story starts with, these angels talking about like, hey, this guy's about to make a bad decision, and we need you to get down there and help him. And we finally catch up to that point. And by that point, I think generally you do understand. You get to this point of like, man, he is in a bad place and in a bad situation. And Potter says this line to him that just kind of echoes into his head of, you're more valuable dead than alive. And he really, unfortunately, takes that to heart and takes it, and it really creates a darkness in him at this moment. So, yeah, I think it is really interesting. And to think about, there are parallels, but obviously they're very different characters. But yeah, that idea of sort of afterlife, the wisdom of the afterlife coming and saying, hey, don't make this decision because we've seen the kind of impact it can have. Yeah, that's interesting.
Right. There's a
No.
lot of things. What you got, Garrett?
I was gonna say I'm just gonna say I'm not gonna lie. I didn't know or expect constellations to be a part of the movie there,
Mhm.
and so I was
It's an interesting
again going
to
in blind. I'm
show
like,
them.
okay, maybe my expectations were a little bit off here because like, how long is this? And also, I know this is a Christmas movie, and one of them name is Joseph. Is this Jesus, Mary, and Joseph right here? Like, are they answering the prayers? Is that what and that did not become the thing. But I had that threw me for a loop. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, the way that they kind of personify the angels in the beginning is interesting, where they're like constellations, like you said,
Well,
and like
they're
like the Milky Way galaxy. It looks like, and this is
yeah,
the 40s, so the
yeah.
tech is what it is.
There's a very specific. This is going to be kind of a nerdy moment here, but there's a very specific name for this particular formation in the sky, and what is it? Well, keep going. I'll
Magic.
look it up.
It's magic,
You do.
yeah. Exactly. So I feel like the most famous parts of the movie being the whole like leading George through his life and showing him all that and the stuff with parents, you don't get until like the last 30 minutes or so, because the whole first chunk of the movie is Clarence getting assigned this job and then getting walked through almost George's whole life. We start out early with when he saves his brother's life on a frozen pond. We get to see how he saves a patient of Mr. Gower's in the pharmacy, which was a scene early on that made me like react viscerally, because when Mr. Gower slapped George so hard that his bad ear bled again, I wanted to reach through the screen and strangle that man myself. That was
Yeah.
extremely inappropriate and just like
Abuse.
he almost killed that patient and George saved him. And that little hug at the end didn't do shit for me.
No, I mean, that was a really for me,
Mr. Gower should retire immediately.
For me, that was a really powerful moment because this guy, so Mr. Gower is in this state of being super drunk after learning that his son has died, I think, at college. And he's so drunk that he messes up this order. George realizes what's happened and, sort of saves him. But, and it is unfortunately a different time where anybody could just whack kids. That was unfortunately just sort of like the way things went. But him sort of believing that like, oh, kid, you just cost us, like that kid, because like, from his drunken perspective, he thinks,
well, the whole movie, anyone only cares about money. The whole movie, only anyone cares about is money.
Well, but
except George.
Mr. Gowers thinks that kid's going to die because he doesn't get his medicine, but he's actually going to live because the wrong medicine wasn't delivered to him.
Yeah,
so if anything,
Mr. Gower almost killed him.
He just saved Mr. Gower. When we see in the alternate future, Mr. Gower went to prison for essentially manslaughter or murder in this alternate world where George didn't make that save. And, he realized in this moment, George just saved my life. And I think it goes a long way to turning his life around. He I assume, puts the bottle away and he recovers from his son's death in a much more healthier way than he would have had George not made that connection that the wrong essentially poison was in the box. And that's just an early stage. That's like the earliest form we see of George doing the right thing or seeing the right, making the right connection and able to just kind of endure and help people along the way when he, without even really knowing it, saves his brother from drowning, even though it ends up costing him his own hearing in his left ear. Everybody in this town is obsessed with money to an extent, and that's a large, I think, knock-on effect of the time that this movie's presenting. It was made in 1946, but it largely covers the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. So you're looking at, the boom of the 1920s through the Great Depression and into
Well, and
World
it's
War
no
II.
different from today. People only care
Yeah.
about money today, maybe more
Well,
than ever.
I mean, and they care about money because of the things money can do. There's a lot of these families that are struggling in these slums, rent, like only being able to rent. They can't afford their own home. A big moment towards the end of the movie is where George is able to help a family own a home for the first time. And it's a man in his maybe 50s with all these kids, all his family, and he's so proud to actually own a home. And that honestly weirdly hits very home today for a lot of people. There's a lot of people who've never there's a lot of young people today who feel like they'll never own a home.
Hi, it's me.
And that
Real
being-
talk
and-
on the show.
and George being able to provide that, or because Potter and sort of the people who are really concerned with money more than people
They run the town.
They're purposely keeping people down because they can make more money off people suffering than they can off people being helped.
Yep. Good thing we just elected
Again, it
Mr.
sounds
Potter
like
president.
very familiar.
Yeah.
Yep,
I
sounds
know,
like a
that's why I
direct
said this
parallel to
movie-
today.
That's why I said this movie is actually probably even compared to 30 years ago or 40 years ago, somehow becoming more relevant.
It definitely is. I wrote down a line Mr. Potter says. He says, Peter Bailey was not a businessman, and that's what killed him. And I wrote
Mhm.
Potter saying something batshit insane. That is an
There was-
insane thing to say. But that's
There
what
was-
people, I think that's a ruling class belief today.
Yeah.
That
No,
if you're not
I-
a businessman, you're worth being dead.
I think there was a time 20, 30 years ago that I would have said that Mr. Potter is maybe a little cartoonish and maybe unrealistic, but not so much anymore. I feel like
Yeah.
we've gone further into Pottersville than Bedford Falls at this point. And so the 1920s and 40s, I think you're going to have a lot more similarities with the 2020s and 40s through 40s as we keep going, because there is this mentality, there is this struggle, there is this financial hardship on a lot of people today that are just it's hard to,
yeah.
it's hard to move.
George, there's two spots where George really gives Mr. Potter a good beat down verbally
Mhm.
about his greed and all that.
Some of the best
And
moments.
It's remarkable to hear them today because of how it resonates.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I'm like, George Bailey would be rolling in his grave today
Mhm.
if he saw how there's no way. There's just no way.
Well, I think in a lot of ways, ultimately, a lot of guys like George Bailey over time unfortunately have end up losing out. They've
Mhm.
been forced out of business. They couldn't, keep that, one of the strengths of the movie is George keeping this building and loan operation going, despite the constant pressure from Potter to kind of shut it down or to buy it out. And a lot of places that were those alternatives for people over
Yeah.
time have
There's
been
a-
bought out. And
there's a
and
lot
there
of
was nothing more
very-
they could do.
Dismissiveness toward people in the movie.
Hmm.
Another line that I backed up because I was like, that was just a weird thing to say. Is George and Mr. Carter are in the loan business looking at the newspaper, and George says, hey, my brother just got the Congressional Medal of Honor. The president just decorated him. And Mr. Carter says, well, I guess they do those things.
Mhm.
No one cares about anyone.
Yeah,
It was alarming.
It's a very dismissive, and honestly, but it feels again weirdly true today. People are very dismissive of anything, sort of, that actually happens. So we've gotten off on sort of the political parallels to today, but were there
Most of what's worth saying.
I was gonna say, were there any other things that stood out to you guys with this movie?
There's some
You-
funny
you know, you
moments, but
could-
honestly, no.
yeah.
I was taken by the political parallels to today.
Yeah, that's pretty much. I mean, that's really what is the most interesting aspect, at least for a lot of this, is how well that it does hold up. Again, this movie is,
Mhm.
old to say the
Mhm.
least.
Oh, it's old.
And there is still a lot of connectability there. It is well shot. It is well acted. There's a little racism, a little homophobia in there, which makes sense for the 1940s, unfortunately. But it really is. There were moments when they were being racist to the Italian families, and I was like, wow, that seems similar. So there were just so many different things that really did kind of resonate. And again, the strength of this movie is that you're seeing his life. You see that he's a good person, that George Bailey, yeah, he has these big dreams, he has this aspiration, but at his heart he is a good person. And so
Yeah.
he will continue to put his community, his people, first because he knows the benefit. He knows it's difficult, and that is, that is really nice to walk through and see. And again, I go back to A Christmas Carol because you spend time with, or even The Grinch, you spend time with a negative person and you see them turn around. But so many people feel like they're the good person being left behind, being taken down. And so it is good to recognize those people, because those are the people that don't hear, hey, this really impacted me in such a way. And that is why that scene at the end, when all of the town, when all of the community, they hear that George Bailey's in trouble and they come together. That is the moment that Christmas with the Cranks was trying to deliver this season, and they couldn't. And because you're not caring for them, they go too far. But that connectability for so many people in this day and age of like, man, I do feel like I'm being left behind. I'm trying to be such a good person. I'm putting other people forward and it's just not paying off. That still is such a strong resonation, and being able to see that and how you living a good life really impacts people. It really is what the message of a Christmas season is supposed to be.
Yeah. Again, right before the angel stuff toward the end, when George is really hitting his rock bottom and he's in the bar and he's praying. He's talking about how he's not much of a praying man, but he needs some sort of guidance. And then a guy down the bar gets up and decks him, and he goes,
"That was so funny."
Oh, it made me so sad.
I only found it funny.
He said, "That's what I get for praying," and I have felt that. I have felt that before, and I know a lot of people have that. Like you try to do what's right, and you get punched in the face for it. I bet most people have felt there at some point. I see what you're saying about the funniness, but that's where it hit me. I was like,
because he lost his mind there at the end, and he way overreacted.
He did.
So for him to get punched in the face by that guy, I did find that funny. But yes, it added to the story of just things piling on top. But listen, he deserved to be punched in the face because that woman didn't do nothing. He deserved that punch.
You're right, but it is another good example of a good man steps out of line once and gets punched in the fucking face.
Absolutely, yes.
But his whole life he's been trying to do good and no one will help him. That's such that's like that never changes.
But I this doesn't happen to me very much. I have very tough eyes, but I did cry watching all those people come to, even though I knew it was going to happen, watching all those people come to George's aid, because he's a guy who, and like you don't do what's right for adulation, but when you go through this movie and you watch this guy have to constantly put his own dreams aside because at the end of the day he just can't let Potter win, and he, his dad dies and he thinks he's finally out of here, but unfortunately he's got to come back and he has to keep sitting there, and then he gets in a situation where he loses everything. Like best case scenario, he's going to jail or worse, and then the company's going to get bought out, and so like he's so down, and to see basically the whole town come through for him after years of him coming through for them, building basically a place with affordable housing for them, helping them get out of their scrapes, giving up his own honeymoon money so that, when all these people freaked out about a potential bank crash, he could keep them there and keep that place running. It was very moving, and I think that a lot of times this movie gets sort of boiled down to the gimmick at the end with the "I wish I was never born" thing, but it's a lot more than that. Like I think my wife was particularly taken. She had never seen it before either. I think she was really taken by the romantic subplot of having George and Mary meet each other and their sort of relationship as it grows. She was like, I'm loving this. This is like, she was in love with that part.
Yeah, he says, "You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down."
Yeah.
George Bailey was the biz master of 1946.
He was. I did get a big crack out of when she falls out of her robe and she's hiding in the bushes, and he's just kind of like, giving her a hard time. He goes, "Oh man, doesn't come across a situation like this too often. Not in Bedford Falls anyway. Oh man, it's read about things like this,
Right.
and she's like, 'Give me my robe.'"
I
That's very
had
cute.
as much as I liked that romantic subplot, I did have to laugh at James Stewart at all of 37 towering over these high school kids. He was 37 when he filmed this movie.
Yeah,
That's
and he's
crazy.
like, I'm 24.
He's like, what's the matter? But
Oh, why?
I don't know. It's interesting. I recommend you guys go read about a little bit about him and his life in this time. It's really interesting. This was his first movie to do after World War II. He almost didn't return to acting. He, throughout filming this, felt that he wasn't doing a good job. It's interesting. There's definitely stuff to look into there with how Jimmy Stewart kind of had a career renaissance from this, because he was a big star. Then he went to war, and things changed. He said he almost came back and was like, I almost just went back and ran the shop in Pennsylvania because it seemed like Hollywood was pointless after going to war.
No, and originally they wanted Cary Grant for this. Cary Grant actually was one of the people rumored to be in it, and it is fun to have him come. So you have young James Stewart in this at times where he's trying to play younger than he is, but does a fantastic job. I mean, he and Donna Reed are wildly charming in this. They have great chemistry together. Hang on, I want to bring up one thing here. So, It's a Wonderful Life is based on the 1943 short story, The Greatest Gift, which, guys, is, in fact, inspired by Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. So there is a sort of loose inspiration there.
Hey.
And one of the, it was nominated for 5 Oscars. The director, Frank Capra, actually did win a Golden Globe for Best Director for this. I looked it up, and it's Stephen's Quintet is the name of that star constellation. It's actually 5 galaxies that can all be seen, and I guess that was discovered not that long before this film in terms of that photo they used. But yeah, anyway, some little details there for you that I looked up while we were talking.
All right, well, let's get into our final thoughts here and give our last rating. Garrett, you got to do the honors. It was your pick.
Yeah, I would think that it was a good pick. Not to toot my own horn or anything like that, but again, sometimes movies don't live up to the hype, and this one exceeded it. And so that is a great feeling to walk away feeling like that a movie is as good as it has been hyped up to be, especially one that is considered one of the best of all time. And again, I do think it's connectable. I think it feels timeless in a weird way. And I do think I really have anything wrong with it. So I think it's 5 stars.
Yeah. It holds up. It continues to inspire. I found it inspiring at times. It continues to tell a story that resonates with a lot of people. And I think it just gets that core Christmas message that we talked about with community coming together and all that. I just think it nails it really perfectly. And for a movie to continue to do that over several decades is impressive. So 5 stars for me too.
Yeah. I believe that canonically this film is in Superman's letterboxd top 4. And I looked it up. In the past, I'd given this 4.5, but that was based on my memory from watching it, sort of cut up throughout, one of my school classes. I'm going to go with the 5 stars. I was really, really knocked out by this. I really liked it a lot. I feel like I could watch it again and find whole new reasons whole new things to like about it. So, yeah, it's a wonderful film.
Oh, you're muted, sir.
Dang, you just can't find your cursor? That was where I was. I was like, where is it at? All right, yeah, letterbox game then. Let's play the game, see where we're at. What's the who's first? Who's on?
So,
first?
letterbox game, Josh, you are up first. You have 19. Garrett and I have 21. A win by Garrett or I, we'll just have a winner. If Josh is the closest but doesn't get a direct hit, we'll need a tiebreaker for Garrett and I. But if Josh gets a direct hit, there'll be a 3-way tie for the prestigious 3-star trophy.
I'm gonna go for gold on this one. The movie, its reputation speaks for itself. I think this is gonna be a 4.5.
Whoa. Okay. 4.5.
Dang.
Garrett, I won the most recent episode, so
Okay.
I'll defer to you.
Well,
Or I can go first.
I don't think that I mean, Josh is putting it in like, I got to go higher than, because it's in the 4s. I'm highly like confident in that. But I don't know if I want to like go higher than a 4.5. That is really high.
That's very high.
And, I always go back to those Lord of the Rings movies because those were some of the highest, like consistently some of the highest movies. And I can't ever remember if they were 4.2 or 4.3, but I'll just, whatever, 4.4. I'll just undercut them.
Okay, shoot. I guess I'll go a little bit lower, and I'll just say a 4.0.
We got 4.0. Wait, I said a 4 and a 4.0. That's the same thing. We have a 4.5, which is me.
Yeah.
A 4.4 for Garrett, and a 4.0. That was it.
Yeah.
For David. I bet the reviews for this aren't very funny, so we'll just look through it.
Oh, there's probably some funny ones. I bet you there's a lot of people who are thirsting over.
I'll say
James
while
Stewart.
you look, Andrew, our co-host friend, he sent me his review of It's a Wonderful Life, and I was planning on reading it on the show until I saw that it was 1, 2, 3, 4 like 5-sentence paragraphs, I'd say, and a sentence at the end. So I'll just tap it off with what he says is, this will always be my favorite Christmas movie. 5 stars with a heart. And so take that. You can go read the other 4.5 paragraphs later.
Excellent. We got 5 stars. When they say movies have the power to save lives, this is exactly what they mean. 5 stars. 37-year-old Jimmy Stewart passing as a 22-year-old is the only Christmas miracle I believe. 5 stars. Adult Charlie Brown. And then finally, 4.5 stars. Nobody likes getting the most out of a vowel quite like James Stewart.
Yeah, Maury.
He runs them all. So
Aw.
I will say,
There's a squirrel.
now that we've read some reviews, we have a direct hit this week.
I swear to God, I hope it's Josh. Throw chaos into the mix.
It's Garrett.
It's a 4.4?
It's a 4.4 on letterboxd.
That means that I've been dethroned.
In a real nail biter of a season.
What a game.
Hang
wow.
on.
I think we
That
finally
gives
figured
Garrett
out how to
20.
get that whole thing. Like, wow.
It's a wonderful
Way to go,
life.
team. That was a great letterbox season.
A
It was a
direct
great
hit
letterbox
to
season.
end the year as well. Wow. Well, Garrett, do you have any special words you want to say as the winner of the prestigious 3 Stars Award?
Give me back that trophy I bought
Yep. We're
3 years ago and haven't seen since.
We'll have to arrange a pickup and
Yes.
we'll film it
Yes.
Yes. Oh,
Standing
yes.
up
for
of
Instagram.
the award. I'll have to scratch out here. It says Permanent King David.
It better not be.
Mm.
Have to take the trophy emoji
Did you
out
have
of
it
my
2 years back to back
2 years
defending
back
champ?
to
Is that
back.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Roman Reigns of the 3 Stars.
Again, the true goal. I got to be honest with Dave. I had a conversation with Josh behind your back because I edited our last episode and I was so mad at myself because I lost sight of the goal. The goal was to prevent you from winning, and I shot my shot to try to hit it straight, and I lost. And I was like, dang it! If I would have just
Came in clutch at the end.
I remembered.
I want to point out, though, because I've been keeping track of this as well, that even with if you take out the direct hits, you would also be the winner of the year because you had the most actual wins with 15. Josh had 13. I had the least with 12. The direct hits kept me
Nice.
in this game for most of the
Nice.
year. So it was a well fought, well earned year. I can't wait to actually get this trophy and hand it to you. Hopefully we need to start adding names along the sides, or something like
I know.
that. David.
Have to add
Yeah.
layers to it.
Josh, good luck to you next year.
I don't. You misunderstand. I won too. I'm just as happy. I promise. All right. Yep. That's it for us. That's it for So Many Santas. Subscribe to our YouTube channel or on your favorite podcasting app to get every new episode of the show as they come out. You can also follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. And finally, just visit SoManySequels.com where you can see all those links and our past episodes there. We will be back soon with our end of year recap, I think. And then, yeah, we'll be back soon with that. So, bye.